work. What do you mean?
I don't know if they always have the deeper dive.
Oh, all right. Well, they did earlier this week.
Well, now I just can't remember which one's which, and I know that we flipped one to the other because we missed one. So maybe this one always is. So yeah, we'll just call it Yahoo. What up, Yahoo?
All right. Thanks, Yahoo.
We're happy
Uh,
about them one way or the other. So
that's right. That's right. Dave Lochran and should be Adam Scher.
yeah, we're
He
working on it.
will. He will be.
We can't even say you will be.
Yeah.
He
In
may be.
case you were wondering, and this is going to come out of left field, he might be having internet problems.
And he's not even in the same place that his internet normally is. It's like they followed him there.
It's anyway. Let's get to it, man. We've got 12 games, and baseball obviously takes less time than basketball, so I'm not going to ask you about your thoughts on the NBA playoffs, but we'll get started. We'll wait for him to jump in here, Josh. I want to start with the White Sox and the Yankees. Yankees have one of the highest totals on the slate, and you're looking at a right now 6-run total. It came up throughout the day. Oh, there he is.
Sorry.
All right. We're live.
Okay.
We started.
All right, let's switch it out. Later, gents.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Yankees, White Sox. Yankees have a 6-run total here. White Sox down towards the bottom against J.A. Happ at 4.1. I mentioned this to you, Adam, last night, but didn't get your opinion on it. I haven't really talked to anybody about it. Lucas Giolito does have a slider and a changeup that actually get a lot of whiffs and miss a lot of bats. I will, as sketchy as he is, I will have some Giolito on DraftKings at 5,500. Judge and Voit and Bird and Frazier and Romine are all high strikeout bats against righties. He could get absolutely torched here, and I'm okay with that. But the Yankees are going to be way popular, and Lucas Giolito won't be. So that's where I'm at here. And obviously I like the Yankees too, but I just see this being a spot where they could strike out a lot and disappoint. What are you doing with pitchers in this game?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you on Giolito. I don't expect to have, massive amounts of exposure to him.
You won't need it though.
Right, exactly. It works as a leverage play. He's more talented than a $5,500 price tag. He's inconsistent. He has his problems. We all know that, but that's clearly baked into this price. And he is facing a lineup with 7 right-handed hitters. Greg Bird is one of the left-handed hitters, which isn't the worst thing in the world for Giolito. So there's certainly upside there. When you look at the really cheap SP2 options, you basically have him and you have Chad Bettis in San Francisco. The matchup is obviously better for Bettis. The ballpark is better for Bettis, but I don't think there's any argument that Bettis is has better stuff than Giolito or has a higher ceiling than Giolito. So I'll have some in tournaments. And obviously I like the Yankees bats in lineups where I don't have Giolito, because when he is bad, he is really bad. He's not usually someone that goes out there and gives up a couple of runs. He normally is borderline unhittable, or he doesn't make it out of like the 4th inning. So it's a spot where I want both sides. And as far as J.A. Happ goes, I do like him quite a bit. I like his price tag. This White Sox lineup has plenty of strikeouts in it. There's no Wellington Castillo. He's replaced by James McCann, who's not nearly as good a hitter as Castillo is. You really just don't have a whole lot to worry about. Moncada's worse from the right side of the plate. Jimenez so far has been overmatched by Major League pitching. It's just not really a scary lineup, and I think that Happ's price tag, especially in tournaments, offers enough upside while also letting you get in some bats that you want.
I like Happ plenty here. Would have had some interest in Wellington Castillo if we had him in the lineup, but we don't. So, what are you going to do? James McCann, decent against lefties, batting 7th. Just looking at, individual hitters from the White Sox side of this one. With the Yankees, obviously they make for a good stack. They're going to be popular though. Like there's no question people aren't going to have a decent amount of New York bats just because of that run total. So with Giolito, it's really just a leverage thing. And if it goes poorly, it goes poorly. But my guess is not many people will be playing a pitcher that has a 6-run total against him. And another thing, by the way, he's got like a 94-mile-per-hour fastball. And when I mentioned the slider and changeup, mention them individually because the slider he can use against righties and the changeup he can use against lefties. So it's not like he doesn't have a pitch that he can get swinging strikeouts with against hitters from both sides. But his slider is probably his best pitch, which is good because he's facing 7 righties. I just think there is strikeout upside here, and he could get blown up, but you don't need a whole lot of him in order to have a good game pay off.
Yeah, and you mentioned the fastball velocity too. I mean, the velocity is obviously good. He has good vertical movement on it too. It's a good pitch. It's just location issues for him more than anything. So
yep.
He has the stuff. There's no question.
Yeah, and it's Yankee Stadium. It's a good hitter's park, but it's better for lefties, and Yankees don't have that many lefties. It's still hitter friendly all the way around, but not nearly as friendly to righty bats unless they're going oppo here. But it is what it is, and there you have it. What about bats? We talked about the Yankees. I think we're pretty much consensus that yes, they're very much in play, but will be, I think, decently popular at least. What about anybody from the White Sox?
Jose Abreu is the one that really stands out. Only 4,100 on DraftKings is a pretty nice price tag there. Obviously has a lot of power from the right side. Tim Anderson is a little more expensive than I would like, but I don't have a problem with him if I get to him. But Abreu is the one from the White Sox that stands out the most.
All right, let's keep it going here. Then we will talk Washington and Pittsburgh. We have Patrick Corbin and Trevor Williams at National Stadium or National Park, I think. Yeah, that should do it. Corbin gave up 3 home runs last time out, struck out 9. He's gone 6 innings in both of his first 2 starts, both of which have come against the Mets. Now he gets a Pirates team that is going to have a good amount of righties. I think they have seven righties here. Yeah, JB Shuck and Frazier are only lefties. Look, I'm personally not gonna land on a ton of Corbin here. Not that I don't think he's a good pitcher, that he can't get strikeouts, and obviously Pittsburgh has one of the lowest totals on the slate. But there are a few other guys I'm getting to with a little bit more frequency. I don't have an issue with him, but let's talk about pitching from this game. Where do you stand on Corbin here against the Pirates?
I'm in pretty much the same spot as you are. I really like Corbin as a pitcher. I don't think the Pirates' offense is particularly dangerous, but they also don't strike out a ton. And it's just kind of an awkward price point for Corbin here because he's close enough to Carrasco where I can get to him. Like normally if I can get to Corbin, I can get to Carrasco. And Corbin's more expensive than guys like Rodriguez and Happ, who also give you plenty of upside while letting you get an extra bat in your lineup. So I don't think I get to a lot of Corbin. I'm not getting the Pirates bats either, though.
No, neither am I. Any thoughts on? Oh, actually, no. Let me rephrase that. I do think that. Oh no, I'm sorry. He's not even in the lineup. I wrote up Cervelli earlier today because if Cervelli was going to bat third at a dirt cheap price on DraftKings, I would have had plenty of interest in him.
Yeah. Speaking of batting third, I get if you did want to play some Jung Ho Gung at 3,300, then go for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, cheap catchers, when I can get them in a decent spot, I'll go with it. There is another one that we'll talk about. But Castillo and Cervelli were both guys that bat, top or middle top of the order, and both of them are out of the lineup, even though they didn't have the greatest of matchups. They're both decent with the platoon advantage. So that kind of sucks. But any thoughts on Trevor Williams and Washington bats here?
Yeah, I mean, Williams, I think, is just a better real-life pitcher than DFS pitcher. Doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. Does do a pretty good job of limiting hard contact, preventing damage against him. I don't have a whole lot of interest in Washington either. They're expensive. There are a lot of really good hitting spots on this slate. It's not to say that guys like Rendon and Soto can't be good here against Williams, but they're just not priorities for me.
All right. Yeah, this game to me is just one that I don't have a ton of interest in. I'm okay to move on if it's good with you.
Yeah, I don't have a ton either.
Let's talk about Toronto and Tampa Bay. Trent Thornton, the spin rate king. Well, soon to be the spin rate king. Ryan Stanek is gonna now. DraftKings has PO as probable opener. They got rid of the probable long reliever. Probably has something to do with, I think you may have been the one to mention it, that can reflect poorly on them, even though it just says probable. When Yarbrough says, PLR and then doesn't pitch that day. Yeah. So there is that. But yeah, Stanek is your probable opener. Look, Thornton's $7,600 on FanDuel. DraftKings, though, where you're playing two of them, he's $7,800. This is a guy who we know has good stuff, at least a good curveball, and it looks like, the curveball is the one that we hear talked about a whole lot, but I'm pretty sure that he's using a bit of the splitter a little bit versus lefties too, which could help against what is probably, I didn't look at it yet. Yeah, balanced lineup for the Rays, but. Where do you stand on a guy like Thornton, who's got almost 3,100 RPM average RPMs on that curveball, has a 21% whiff rate through his first two starts on that pitch, and a 40% strikeout rate on the season. Again, only two starts, but man, he's been pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, he's been there are definitely things to like about him. I don't see myself getting to a lot of him here for a couple of reasons. For one, he's a little more expensive than I would like. And for two, this Tampa lineup does scare me a bit. They have some strikeouts in it, but they also have some good hitters, and it is a nice ballpark boost for them. Guys like Meadows, Pham, Choi, Lau, like 1 through 4 there. You have Yandy Diaz, who doesn't strike out a lot. Kiermaier hitting 6th. Like there's a lot of power and just, average to above average hitters in this lineup, and I don't think you're really getting a discount on Thornton. So I'm actually more inclined to get to the Tampa Bats than I am to get to Thornton.
All right. Interesting. I don't have an issue with it, but I was looking at ownership earlier today, though, and I was just seeing surprisingly high ownership projections on Tampa Bats. So that it made me have a little bit more interest in Thornton. We did get updated ownership projections. Maybe that came down a little bit, but earlier in the day, a bunch of these Tampa Bats were projected to be pretty highly owned.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too concerned with hitter ownership on this slate because you have so many good spots that it should pretty much balance itself out.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. I like Thornton just because of the price on two pitcher sites. I have no problem getting here. I just wanted to pull something up here real quick. Yeah. Here we go. Yeah, Thornton. I was trying to compare him on Yahoo to the other pitchers. So you have Carrasco at 52, Corbin at 47, Paddock at 45, Wheeler, Happ, Thornton. He's basically the same price as J.A. Happ. So that's pretty prohibitive for me because I don't dislike J.A. Happ at all. But on DraftKings, Happ is $1,300 more, so I'm willing to have some flexibility there.
Would you rather? Oh, sorry. Would you rather have Thornton or Drew Pomeranz?
So I like Drew Pomeranz today.
So do I.
And I'm nervous about it because he's Drew Pomeranz. But I'll tell you what. So I did the early bird with Stratford last night, for today. And I had mentioned we didn't have ownership yet, of course. And I had mentioned that I thought this would be a spot where Pomeranz would be popular just because of the low total in the park, and Colorado Rockies away from Coors. But his ownership is low. So that just made me like him more because while, he's a two-pitch pitcher, but when the curveball's working, when the fastball looks good, he can get outs. And Colorado, yeah, I like him, but I'm nervous about it. I'm not going to pretend like I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I have him ahead of Thornton in that price range.
So do I. But if I'm talking about like the mid-range in there, I have Thornton behind Pomeranz, and then I don't really have anybody else in that 7-8K range that I really like all that much. So
yeah, that's fair.
All right. Anyway, let's move on to the Toronto Bats if you want to talk about anybody here with a bullpen game for Tampa.
I really don't. I generally stay away from these bullpen games, and this is no exception. For one, the Toronto lineup just isn't good. But two, assuming Yarbrough's coming in behind Stanek, you're going to have Smoke hitting from the right side after his first plate appearance. Like his first plate appearance is against a guy throwing 100 miles an hour. So that's not great. And then after that, he's going to be hitting from the side where he has less power. So that's also not great. Grichuk and Hernandez are fine in the matchup against Yarbrough specifically, but I just don't really feel the need to get to a whole lot of Toronto.
Me neither. All right, well then let's keep going because we have some games that we're definitely going to like here. This might be one of them. Boston and Baltimore. We have the Boston Red Sox with the highest total on the slate. Should come as a surprise to nobody. It's up to 6.5. implied total, and I don't think that's all that crazy. It's at Fenway Park. You have a Boston Red Sox lineup that's loaded with power bats and power righties. And I mean, all in all, you look at this team and against David Hess, I know he had that strong 6 1/3 no-hit innings, but it was against the Toronto team that couldn't hit anybody. And then he promptly served up 3 home runs the next game. I just don't see any way he escapes this game with a pulse. I really don't.
Yeah, I love Boston in tournaments here because, I kind of mentioned not being too concerned with hitter ownership on this slate because of how many good spots there are. You could, at first glance, you could very easily just assume Boston's going to be really popular. But when you have the Yankees with a 6 implied run total at cheaper price tags, you have the Athletics facing Smiley in Texas at almost a 6 implied run total with cheaper price tags than Boston. You don't have a strong bottom tier or even really mid-range of pitching. I think that Boston probably doesn't have crazy ownership here. Like if you just kind of running initial cash lineups, I wasn't getting a lot of Boston as like optimal plays. So I think that their ownership probably is manageable. And I just love the spot here against Hess, who I don't think is, particularly good, obviously, but also a very weak and overworked Baltimore bullpen. It's really most bullpens these days have just so many guys that, come in and throw 98 miles an hour and basically you don't score a run after the 5th or 6th inning, even if you score a bunch off the starter. Baltimore's not one of those teams. They're a team that you can really add runs on against. So I just think there's way too much upside for me to pass up here.
I agree. And Hess, whether it's left or right side of the plate, does not get a lot of strikeouts. He does not miss a lot of bats. From Benintendi to Betts to Moreland's batting third, Martinez, Bogarts. I like Devers at third base. And you could make a great argument for almost anybody in this lineup. So it's just really difficult not to like Boston. Stack or as one-offs. I mean, just the whole team really is in a great spot. Eduardo Rodriguez has not looked even remotely good to start the year. He's always struggled to work deep into games. And now he's facing a bad Baltimore team. He's actually expected to get some ownership on FanDuel at 12%. On Yahoo, I think he's that 28 projected percent ownership at $37. Are you on Rodriguez? This is a guy that I'm pretty much not going to have a ton of. You shook your head. Yes, it looks like you are on Rodriguez today.
Yeah, I think Rodriguez is just better than the Orioles. Pitching is pretty limited on this slate, and I think Rodriguez has upside here. Like he can go 6 innings, strike out 8, and I'm happy. I know he hasn't been particularly good in his first 2 starts, but facing Seattle and facing Oakland is just way different than facing the Orioles. I have him basically very similar to J.A. Happ, and I expect similar ownership for myself between them.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, I don't think it's a deep pitching slate, but I think it more so comes down to like I think I'd rather take a chance on a sketchy Drew Pomerantz than a sketchy Eduardo Rodriguez. Obviously, you talked about liking both of them, so it's not an either or situation, but for me, it might be. I guess no real bats for Baltimore for me. Anything for you here? Any one-offs?
Mancini's the only one that I'm really interested in.
All right. And Rodriguez has done a decent job of limiting righties for his career, at least. He's had some, I won't say full like reverse splits, but it's not like he's a super heavy platoon guy where righties just kill him like a lot of lefties. A few lefties on this slate, as a matter of fact, and we'll get to them. Miami and Philly, Jake Arrieta, Sandy Alcantara. I'm just going to throw this to you because I really didn't come up with much at all from this game. I'll throw the totals and let you go. 3.8 implied total for Miami against Arrieta, who literally, I think he had 1 swinging strike all of his last start. His swing strike rate is around like 4% on the season. I might be overshooting it, honestly. And then Philly hit 4.8. It's at Marlins Park, so you know how that goes. What do you have here, Adam? Just cover the whole game in its entirety.
Yeah, not a lot of interest for me. I'll be at the game, so I wish that I had more interest in it. But Arrieta is, I mean, it's a bad Miami lineup, and it's a great pitcher's park, and pitching on the slate isn't great. So you could certainly make an argument for Arrieta, but I would just rather take my chances against, maybe a little bit more dangerous teams with higher strikeout upside guys, especially when you look at the lineup that Miami rolled out. It's not good, but you don't have Peter O'Brien and you don't have Lewis Brinson in it. So that cuts down on the strikeout upside for Arrieta even more. he's not inexpensive. I just don't really see myself getting to a lot of Arrieta here. And then on the other side, Alcantara, I think, has good stuff. I like him as a pitcher. I like his future. But this is like it's one of the worst possible matchups you can get for him when you think about what he struggles with. Like when he has bad games, it's because he's not throwing strikes and he's putting extra guys on base. Philadelphia is very, very good, in addition to just having really good hitters throughout their lineup. Very, very good at working counts, getting deep into counts, making pitchers, consistently hit their spots and not make mistakes. That isn't really Alcantara's game. So that scares me. I don't expect to really get to him. The ballpark downgrade isn't great for Philadelphia. Obviously, I do like Bryce Harper. I do like Rhys Hoskins. But when you look at them, comparable to like a Mookie Betts, JD Martinez at the same price point, I would rather have Martinez and Betts.
This season, the Phillies' walk rate is 2% higher than the next closest team, 14.3%. They're generating a ton of walks, forcing a lot of pitches, and really just grinding pitchers down. Some good pitchers too. And we've seen that, like you just mentioned. It is something that you're going to get. Even with guys like Segura, he might not be a power bat, but he won't strike out. Hoskins and Bryce can foul off 600 balls in a row. Like these guys just work deep counts, and a lot of them are pretty patient. So yeah, it's tough for me to get there. But hitter wise too, like you mentioned, Phillies, they work deep counts. They're tough on pitchers. I'm just not getting to many bats in this game either, though.
Yeah, neither am I. They're expensive, and it's not a good park. It's a pitcher who normally, when he struggles, is with walks and not home runs. So, not a ton of appeal for me.
All right. Well, then let's keep going. New York Mets, Atlanta Braves, Zach Wheeler, Kyle Wright. There have been a few like good pitchers that have had really bad starts to the season. Zach Wheeler falls into that basket of good, bad pitchers. Good pitcher, bad pitching. 11 runs over his first couple of games. 8 walks though, Adam, and that really stands out, right? He walked 7 batters in his last start. And look, you could look at the and tight strike zone or not, because both of his starts came against Washington. Wheeler's a good pitcher, and last season one thing he did really well was he worked deep into games. I think he had a stretch where he pitched 7 or more innings in like 10 of 12 starts towards the end of the season. He's got good stuff when he's healthy. We know that. But also, Atlanta's one of those teams that I just really don't like playing pitchers against. Even if they limit runs, you're also banking on them getting strikeouts, and you're not going to get a lot of swinging strikeouts against Atlanta whatsoever.
Yeah, they're one of my least favorite teams to take pitchers against. I do have a lot of respect for Wheeler, so I'm not on the Atlanta side here either, especially because they're not exactly cheap. Wheeler does a very, very good job of limiting hard contact, particularly to right-handed hitters. Freeman, is at a premium position at first base, and he's relatively expensive. So I'm not on the Atlanta side here, but I'm not really that interested in Wheeler either, just because I hate the matchup.
Yeah, me too. I don't mind some Mets bats though, just based on salaries. The Brandon Nimmo is batting 8th and not leading off, which sucks. He's striking out at 47% to start the season. You have Jeff McNeil leading off, Robinson Cano batting 3rd, Conforto cleaning up, Dom Smith batting 6th. I mean, if there's one thing, SunTrust Park is a pretty lefty-friendly venue, and I think Kyle Wright's got decent stuff, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the Mets get to him a little bit here. Really lefty-heavy lineup, and I'm not really going to talk too much about Wright's splits because I haven't seen enough from him, at least at the major league level, to really draw any conclusions there. What are your thoughts here on the Mets and Kyle Wright?
I hate the lineup the Mets are running out. I was really interested in New York on the show this morning with Josh. Now I'm a little bit less interested just because you don't have Peter Alonso. You have Brandon Nimmo hitting 8th.
Yeah.
So it's not as appealing, but I'm with you in having some interest in these bats. Robinson Cano at $3,700 playing second base, I really, really like. Ramos is a perfectly fine catcher option. You do have the one thing about the lineup that they're running out is you do have some power towards the bottom. Obviously flawed hitters, but Keon Broxton has a ton of power. Brandon Nimmo, we know, has power, and these guys are going to be completely unowned, hitting 7th and 8th. So, there are ways to stack the Mets that are going to be just completely off the board here, and that aren't going to suffer for upside.
Yeah, it'd be nice if Rosario wasn't batting in the 2 hole, but
yeah.
Yeah, Nimmo eighth. It's not great. He was someone leading off that I had quite a bit of interest in. Now you have Jeff McNeil here. I mean, it is what it is, I guess. You still have a bunch of lefties, but you're right. The configuration of this lineup is not exactly what you're looking for. Anything else you want to touch on from this game?
No.
All right. Let's talk about Texas and Oakland. I think we can spend some time here. This is a pretty solid game for hitting purposes. The Oakland Athletics, who have just been crushing the ball lately, have a 5.6 total. And then not far behind them with a 5-run total is the Texas Rangers against Mike Fiers. We can start wherever you want here, man. You've got, you and I talked about this the other day. When you've got lefties, decent lefties going up against the Rangers, they can actually make for really, really good pitching plays because the Rangers can't really get potent from the right side, unless you have lefty power. But when you've got a righty like Fiers at Globe Life Park, this Rangers lineup becomes very dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many good hitting plays in this game. Fiers is not a terrible pitcher, but not a great pitcher either. Doesn't miss a lot of bats though, and the big thing with these Texas hitters is they have a lot of power and they strike out a lot. When guys like Joey Gallo hit the ball, it doesn't really matter, like how good you are at limiting what kind of contact you're able to create. Gallo's going to hit it really far. So I absolutely love Joey Gallo today. But you have nice price tags on guys like Shin-Soo Choo, Rougned Odor, Nomar Mazara. Like I would put Odor in the same. He's right up there with Robinson Cano for me. Shin-Soo Choo's a good value play, as is Mazara. Gallo I love in tournaments. So even though Fiers can certainly be good, like I have more. I think that there's a better chance Fiers has a good game than Drew Smyly has a good game, but I still prefer the Rangers bats and think that there's a lot of upside there.
I'm with you, man. I mean, I like both sides of this one, no question. But with the Rangers, just to rattle off a few of them here, Joey Gallo is one of the preeminent power hitters in the game, and this is just a phenomenal spot. Rougned Odor, you're getting at a discount. Nomar Mazara batting cleanups. Hell, Shin-Soo Choo lead off here against Fiers. Just a million different ways to stack the Rangers or play one-offs if you need. And then with the Athletics, Semien has looked solid. I'd like to see a little bit more running, but what are you going to do? He's got eight extra base hits to start the season. Mark Canha, Matt Chapman, Chris Davis, Pinders looked good. Piscotty, even Profar batting from both sides of the plate. Ramon Laureano. I mean, you've got a 9-righty Oakland lineup that could do damage from top to bottom, Adam.
Yeah, it's a really, really deep lineup. You have Mark Canha jumping to the number 2 spot, so that's a nice little bump for him. Piscotty drops to 6th, which just means his ownership goes down. Jurickson Profar has plenty of power from the right side, and batting 7th should be pretty low owned here. It's another lineup where you can just stack it so many different ways that it doesn't really matter it doesn't matter that much, that people are going to Oakland or that some of these hitters are going to be very highly owned, because you can just be contrarian within these stacks because all 9 hitters in this lineup have enough power against Smyly to be appealing.
That's right. Who are your top bats from both sides, just to make sure we cover this one in its entirety, because it really is a great hitting game.
Yeah. Chris Davis, Joey Gallo, Matt Chapman are the top 3. And then I would say like Choo, Mazara, Piscotty, Canha, Semien because of his position.
Yeah, Semien and leading off in this spot, I'd be surprised if Semien didn't give you 5 plate appearances here.
Right.
But you can say that for, I would say, like the 1 through 5 hitters on both teams.
Yeah, I think I would say that for like Ramon Laureano batting 8th.
Right, exactly. So maybe we get 6 for Marcus Semien. We'll see. But just a really good game through and through. Kansas City, Cleveland. Temperatures come down at Kauffman Stadium. It had been really warm there, like 80 plus degrees over the past couple of days. It's down to 53 degrees tonight. So, a little less friendly from a hitting standpoint. Let's talk about Carlos Carrasco. Right now, the lowest implied total, actually tied with Pittsburgh, is the Kansas City Royals, 3.4 at home against Carlos Carrasco. You and I have talked about this a bunch. Carrasco has, oddly enough, and this has been going on for years now, been a lot better on the road opposed to at home. And you could look at his WOBA, his home runs per 9, his strikeout rate's pretty consistent across the board. But whether you read into this or not, it is a Kansas City team that, from a power perspective, there's not that much there. Soler, I like Godo Hearn, but there's some speed here. I also think Carrasco could get some Ks, but he is the most expensive pitcher. So what are you doing with a guy who's 52 on Yahoo, 11K on DraftKings, and on FanDuel to round it out? Carrasco is 10.5, the most expensive on all 3 sites, of course.
Right. He's my highest projected guy. I'm going to get to as much as I can. The problem is that, in tournaments, I still firmly believe that hitting wins tournaments, and there's a lot of expensive bats in really, really good spots here. So that'll limit my tournament exposure a little bit. But, I obviously like the pitcher in Carrasco. I like the matchup. Merrifield and Mondesi are both good. But then beyond that, you get not very good hitters, and some of them are just flat out bad. You also get strikeouts from pretty much everyone in the lineup outside of Merrifield. So it's just a really, really good spot for Carrasco, and I will be trying to get to as much of him as I can.
Yeah, me too. But if I don't get to him, I'm not going to, I think you made a good point. I'm not going to force the issue, making sure that Carrasco's in every lineup. Only because are there some decent value bats on this slate? Yeah, but there's also some spots where I think you do want to pay up for hitting. Whether it be Boston, Oakland, Texas isn't that expensive, but a few of those guys are going to cost you. There are a few teams that you're really going to want to get to. And then the Yankees, if you like them against Giolito, they're not especially cheap either. Brad Keller on the other side, pretty good at run prevention. I've got to say, we saw it last year as well. Not a lot of strikeouts, but if there's one thing we know about Keller, he has done such a ridiculous job of preventing the long ball. I think he went 41 innings last year or so, Adam. I know I talked about this with you on the Deeper Dive a lot last year before he allowed a home run. He just did not allow much power whatsoever. 0.45 home runs per 9 in 140 innings, and he's yet to allow a home run through 3 starts this year. Not a big strikeout guy, though, and he's facing a Cleveland team that's really not that potent. So where do you side on this, if anywhere?
Yeah, not really too interested in either side. Keller is almost appealing at 7,100 on DraftKings, just because Cleveland's not that good, and he is pretty good at, keeping the ball on the ground and limiting damage. Just not sure that there are enough strikeouts there for me to want to pay that price tag. And on the other side, though, not really interested in Cleveland outside of just some price plays. Leonis Martin and Jake Bauers at 36 and 3,700 are both reasonable value options. Jose Ramirez, especially on Yahoo, $15 for him. He hasn't been hitting good to start the season, but we have enough of a track record on this guy that we know the kind of hitter he can be. I think that's just too cheap of a price tag, and it's a spot that I would definitely look to get to.
All right. Well, I don't disagree. Look, there is one thing we both agree on with Keller. If he gets you 5 strikeouts, you're going to be happy with it. You're hoping he goes 7 innings here, with no runs and 5 Ks in the win or something like that. I just think it's unlikely that Brad Keller starts mowing teams down by way of strikeout, but you might not need it. He's not bad. He does a pretty decent job of working relative, at least he did last year, shorter innings. And he's thrown 100 or more pitches in 2 of 3 starts already this season. There is no leash on Brad Keller. So at least that when you're getting a guy, because if a guy that doesn't strike anyone out and isn't going to go more than 90 pitches, I really don't want anything to do with him. But if Brad Keller can throw 110 pitches to get through the 7th, well, that kind of mitigates the lack of strikeouts too. But you always want strikeouts, so it's kind of a give and take. All right.
Yeah, I mean, if you were like 6K or 6,200, I'd be pretty interested. But he's just priced high enough where it takes a lot of the appeal away from me.
Yep, no question. On Yahoo, you're getting Brad Keller at 36, which is still, to me, a little bit pricey. It's still a little more than I'd feel comfortable with. I'd rather go to a much cheaper Giolito if I'm playing tournaments, because at least I know Giolito could give me 8 strikeouts, could give me 8 runs, but Pomerantz is $28 on Yahoo too. So and you've got two guys that are priced with the likes of Drew Smiley and Chad Bettis. Pomerantz to me just seems way too expensive, even if he's a sketchy play, but we'll get to him later. I want to ask you about hitters here before we move on. Anything from Cleveland and KC that you like?
Just the three guys at the top for Cleveland. I think are cheap enough, but outside of that, no.
Yeah, you mentioned the cheap price points. I wouldn't assume there was anything for Kansas City, but gotta ask. 4 games to go before we round this out. I want to let you know that if you're looking to check out awesemo.com and you're looking for a promo code to get a nice discount on your first month, we got you covered. 50% off. That's right, half off your first month of premium subscription at awesemo.com by simply using the promo code Deeper Dive. That's one word, though, not two. Deeper Dive, all one word. When you click sign up on the homepage at awesemo.com, spell it right, AWESEMO.com, and select your plan. It's just so much stuff. I can't go through all of it, but I will quickly let you know that we have ownership projections for all of the sports. We have player projections. We have NASCAR, PGA, NHL, NBA. I might have said NBA already, but you get it. NFL, everything, MMA, and other sports, of course. When they are happening, we've got content. We've got sports betting content as well. Fantasy Cruncher add-on. We have Alex Baker, Awesemo himself, his rankings, projections, the lineup builder, and just so much more. So we'd love to have you check us out. And when you do, use the promo code Deeper Dive to get 50% off your first month. And we've got our premium Slack chat. I can't say that, Adam. I can't say Slack chat. When you sign up, check us out in Slack chat and say hi. We'll happily show you around. All right. Arizona, San Diego. We've got Luke Weaver and Chris Paddock. I guess I got to ask you about Paddock first. What are your thoughts on this guy? Because you're not getting a discount on him. He's 97 on DraftKings, which is certainly up there. On Yahoo, they didn't price him down either. He is the third highest priced pitcher here at $4,500. And then on FanDuel, slightly cheaper at $8,100. He is actually the 7th most expensive pitcher. So definitely different there than it is everywhere else.
Right. More appealing on FanDuel, but it's still not great. And then on DraftKings,
I had a tough time. I tried to convince myself into liking him more, and I just had a tough time with it.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff is really good. The fastball is good. The changeup is outstanding. The breaking ball is not great. It's kind of average, and it makes him a 2-pitch pitcher, basically, with 2 very, very, very good pitches. But I just think that his price tag got up way quicker than it should have.
Great.
And especially for someone who came into the season with so much hype, like within the DFS community, it's not like he's some guy that's going overlooked on slates and you can be sneaky and rostering him. I think that maybe that had something to do with why his price tag's gotten so high so quickly. But I like the talent. I'm interested to see how his season goes. I'm not particularly interested in paying $9,700 for him here.
All right. Yeah, an interesting thing too. Like if you look at these rates, he's got a 33% strikeout rate. Okay. He's faced total batters faced is 33. He struck out 11 of them. That's pretty good. He's walked 5 of them, so his walk rate's not especially low either. And that's going to happen with these young guys, especially when you're working with 2 pitches like this. It's only the reason it's tough though for me, Adam, and I think you made a bunch of good points there, but also we haven't seen him go more than 5 innings and it's only 2 starts. I get that. But when you're paying $9,700 for a guy, like you want to know a little bit more. He threw 89 pitches. He didn't get through the 4th inning last time. And with a lot of these young guys, never pitched above the AA level. One of the biggest issues, no matter how electric your stuff is being able to get out of innings when you've lost your command. And at 9,700, you don't want to run the risk of him walking the bases loaded, even if he strikes out the side, because it's a 35 pitch inning and does you in.
Right. Yeah. 79 pitches in his first start, 89 in his second start. It's just, it feels like you're taking on more risk to pay his price tag than you're getting in upside.
What are you doing with, either Luke Weaver or hitters from this game?
It's tough for me because I hate Luke Weaver. I hate him so much. Like I think he's one of the
Do you remember how popular it was? I felt like everyone in the DFS community wanted him to be better than he was.
yeah, and I still think they think he's better than he is. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I think he's like a completely average maybe pitcher. I don't get I've never gotten the appeal on Weaver, but it is also a slate without a whole lot of pitching that you feel great about. You have him at $6,100 on FanDuel, 7,400 is reasonable on DraftKings, and it's also, as far as strikeouts go, like the most appealing lineup you could get from San Diego. You don't have Ian Kinsler in there. Margot and Hosmer are difficult to strike out. So is Manny Machado. But once you get past those guys and you get the Franmil Reyes, you get the Myers, Tatis, Hedges, the pitcher obviously hitting ninth, like there are strikeouts in this lineup, even if you don't have great strikeout stuff, which Weaver doesn't. So I think I'll end up with some just because of the slate, but I obviously don't feel very good about it because I just don't think Weaver is that good of a pitcher.
Neither do I. I wonder what it was about him. Actually, you know what? I know what it was. It was the fact that when he came up, he had a lot of good matchups out of the gate, and he was wildly underpriced for a while. So I think when he started to get up in price, everyone just assumed that it was worth it because he was popular now, because his name was everywhere. But has he ever really done anything? Has he ever sustained success long enough to actually say, "Hey, this is a really good pitcher"? He hasn't.
Yeah, and he also, like, in 60 innings in 2017, he struck out like 28%
Right.
of hitters. In
Well,
36
that was the
innings
year,
in
and that was the
2016.
year too that everyone was
Yeah.
so high on him.
Yeah, in 2016, he struck out 27%, but it was like stuff that you didn't expect to happen based on his minor league numbers, and he's finally gone back to what I thought he was going to do. He does. You mentioned it, and I agree with it completely. He's really, ever since he came up, though, he's always been a guy that it feels like is a little bit underpriced, or at least priced to the point where you look at it and just say, like, I could do worse. Which is like how I feel about him today, and
Yep.
so that is one reason that people roster him so much. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't think he's very good. I don't mind the matchup though, and I don't think many pitchers on the slate are very good.
All right. That makes sense. The whole St. Louis staff outside of Flaherty is like, some of them are pretty decent real life pitchers, but for like, I don't know. Michael, obviously he's not with St. Louis anymore, but he was when
Yep.
all of this was happening. Michaelis and Waka, and yeah, I don't know. Pass on most of them. But what about? I did ask you. Well, actually, I don't think we have talked about bats yet, right? You just gave your Luke Weaver take.
Yep.
Do you have interest in hitters from either side of this game at Chase Field?
Not really. I mean, I obviously believe in Paddock. I think the Padres bullpen is good, so I'm not overly interested in guys from Arizona. And then on the other side, I don't mind taking hitters against Weaver, but I think that there are just better spots to target. Like where would you go in this lineup? Manny Machado. Manny Machado is fine. He's a really good hitter, but he's the same price point as like Matt Chapman against Smiley in Texas. Franmil Reyes has a bunch of power, so I don't mind that, but it's not a priority for me. Will Myers is expensive enough. Like he's the same price as Andrew Benintendi. It's nothing of priority for me.
All right, then we've got 3 to go. This game's kind of exciting for me just because there's some odd stuff that's been going on. You've got Corbin Burns, who has faced, okay, this is good stuff. 26 righties. He struck out 17 of them. In case you're wondering, that's a lot. I think it's like a 67% K rate. He's faced 20 lefties. He struck out 1 of them. He's allowed 3 homers to lefties, 3 homers to righties. This will stabilize. This isn't going to happen forever. You made a point, I think it was last night, that he has a history of getting a lot of ground balls against lefties. This is true. Last year, though, in limited innings pitched at the major league level, he still struck righties out at a much higher clip than lefties, 28.8% or something to 13% lefties. Look, I'm not saying that he's going to continue to post a 5% K rate against lefties and a 67% K rate against righties, Adam. Here's what I am saying, though. When I look at this Dodgers lineup, I don't think we have one on the update here. No, we still don't have it. I don't know if Seager's going to be in the lineup, but you just still have so many lefties that can do such an incredible amount of damage, from Bellinger to Peterson, to Seager if he is in the lineup, to Max Muncy. It's a team to me that, from an upside standpoint, there's a lot there, and even Verdugo has 2 home runs this season and a triple and 2 doubles. I think there's enough there for where I'm willing to see if this wave can be rode for one more day against Corbin Burns, just because I know that his strikeout stuff is so much better against opposite-handed bats. The floor is yours.
I agree with everything you said. I think the Dodgers lineup is really important here because assuming Seager's in, he said he's fine, assuming that he plays, and assuming that we get the normal lineup with, at least 4 lefties, maybe Verdugo in there as well, then it's a really tough spot for Burns, who he has a wipeout slider, and that's why you see those numbers against righties. But he really doesn't have a way to get lefties to swing and miss.
Yep.
And so he's relying on them hitting the ball on the ground. But if you're going to pitch to contact against guys like Jock Peterson and Cody Bellinger and Max Muncy, then I'm going to look to those guys. So if we get the normal Dodgers lineup, I actually have interest in those guys, whether it be a stack or taking one-offs, because for the most part, they're affordably priced. And I think they give you a lot of upside at really low ownership. The one thing that you want to keep an eye on, though, is a couple of days ago, we talked about liking the Dodgers against Dakota Hudson. And then the Dodgers ran 6 righties out there, and I ended up playing 20% Dakota Hudson. If they run some weird lineup out there again, then Corbin Burns would actually become really interesting if there's 6 righties.
Oh yeah. I don't think that will happen, but if it does, absolutely. This is, to me, it's very black or white. Like, if it's a lefty heavy lineup, I really like them. If it happens that there's a bunch of righties, like you said, Corbin Burns, he has a very good slider. And it appears, you may have mentioned this. If you did, forgive me. It appears that last year, we know he made 30 out appearances. All of them were out of the bullpen. But this year, it looks like he added a changeup just to be able to get lefties. And it has not been great. So, like you said, there still is not a great out pitch against opposite-handed hitters.
Right.
So, all right. Julio Urias. I mean, how many pitches is he going to throw against a Milwaukee team that's got a decent amount of potency from the right side? This kid's really good, but I just think based on his pitch count, he's still overpriced. What are you doing with him and Milwaukee bats?
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't feel the need to pay $8,700 for him against Milwaukee. I do think he's really good. I just don't think he has enough upside for me at that price tag. At that price tag, given the matchup and given pitch count concerns, I'm not interested in Milwaukee hitters because I do think he's really good. The one thing that stands out, though, is Jesus Aguilar is $3,500 on DraftKings. He's a good hitter, and first base isn't the best position. I mean, there's plenty of options, but with so many expensive hitters on the slate, I think that at the very least, saving some money and getting to Aguilar here gives you a bunch of upside because he is such a good hitter at a cheap price tag. Like, I doubt that I don't think there's possibly anyone in the $3,500 range at any position on DraftKings that is as good of a hitter. So I think it at least gives you a lot of upside there.
All right. Let's talk about Houston, Seattle. We got 2 games to go here, and I think we have a decent amount to talk about. We'll get it in, though. Baseball takes less time than basketball. The Houston Astros facing Wade LeBlanc, and you also have a lefty. So the battle of the Wades. There aren't a lot of Wades out there. It's funny. You get 2 of them on the mound today. Wade Miley, Wade LeBlanc. 4.9 total for Houston, and much lower, 4.2 for Seattle. Look, Wade LeBlanc's the interesting thing about him is he gives up a decent amount of home runs at him, but he doesn't get a lot of ground balls either. He's like a below average ground ball rate guy over the last couple of seasons. I don't know where you stand on Houston. We don't have a lineup yet, but Bregman, Altuve, a few of these guys towards the top, and Tyler White, if he's in the lineup, there's a few bats I really like here for the Stros.
Yeah, I mean, they're
good
hitters.
Yeah, go ahead.
They're good hitters. It's just that I don't really like the park. I do have respect for LeBlanc and his ability to just, get easy flyouts and pop-ups and stuff. $4,300 for Springer is really appealing here against the lefty. The price tags in general on Houston are nice, and that's why I'm interested. But I still just I prefer the Oakland bats. I prefer the Red Sox. I prefer the Yankees. I prefer just so many teams to Houston. In a pitcher's park against the pitcher who I think is just pretty average.
Fair enough. Yeah, I have, if as far as teams go in front of them, Boston, Oakland, depending on the Dodgers, they'll be one of my favorites just because I expect them to be pretty unpopular given a much lower total. I have the Astros probably behind Texas too, probably number 6 here, but I don't want to ignore them either, just because while they haven't looked amazing to start the season, this team still is loaded with power, and Tyler White has a ton of pop against lefties. Alex Bregman does too, but I don't know if he'll be in the lineup. This lineup could, if Bregman's out of it, would become less appealing. Maybe we see White move up in the order. We'll see. Where are you at on Seattle? You mentioned that it's not Safeco Field anymore. I believe it's T-Mobile Park. Doesn't really matter. Used to be Safeco Field. Yeah, T-Mobile. What's your take on these Seattle bats against Miley, who has not been that bad over the last 1+ years?
Yeah, he's been downright good, really, especially in terms of limiting damage against
Run
him.
prevention, yeah.
Right. The strikeout numbers aren't there, but he's throwing this since the start of last season. He's thrown his cutter 45% of the time to right-handed hitters. It's been very, very effective. And overall, he's allowed a 280 expected WOBA and a .085 expected ISO to righties. Seattle obviously has some dangerous hitters in this lineup with, Haniger, Santana, Encarnacion in particular hitting 2 through 4. But it's not a bad park for pitchers, and Miley has just done a really good job of limiting damage against him for, like you said, over a year now. So I'm not really looking to Seattle hitters. Miley's a little more expensive. He's like Keller to me. Like, if you were a little bit cheaper, I could talk myself into it, but I don't know that there's enough strikeout upside. And at $7K, I don't really want to be counting on him to go like 6 or 7 innings against this team. But I think he is good enough where I'm not really looking to hitters against him.
Yeah, and also, look, this is still a Seattle team that can do a lot of damage against lefties, even though Miley's good. E5, Haniger, Healy's been good against left. They do still have good bats. It's just a matter of whether you want to target them or not. If this were another slate, I might have more interest just based on scarcity, but there's no scarcity when it comes to the good hitting teams today, Adam. I'm with you. What do you say we close it out, turn it over to Live Before Lock?
Sounds good to me.
All right, let's do it. San Francisco and Colorado. We kind of teased this earlier. Drew Pomeranz, Chad Bettis. It's one of the lowest totals on the slate, 3.6 for Colorado. I really, Adam, was surprised that the projected ownership was not higher for Pomeranz. It just seemed like one of those pitchers the field would be on. I like him today. He might not be a great strikeout pitcher. He had one, real strong season, never really anything else, but he is, high-low pitcher. You get the rising fastball, the curveball that he can pretty much drop anywhere when he's on. And against the Colorado team that away from Coors really will struggle lefty or righty. I think there is some upside in Drew Pomeranz today. It's just a matter of what site you want to play him on and how much of him you want. Like I said, he's 28 on FanDuel, one of the cheapest Yahoo. On FanDuel, only one pitcher, but he's 6,500 and then 8,100 on DraftKings, where you play 2 of them. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Colorado outside of Colorado getting the biggest park downgrade that you possibly can. Not a very good lineup outside of Nolan Arenado and Trevor Story. Blackman, obviously a good hitter as well, but just not really scary. There's not a lot of strikeouts here is the one thing that I don't like. Really nobody outside of like Desmond strikes out in this lineup. So that's not good for Pomeranz. But the ballpark's great. There's a lack of pitching options on the slate. The price tag's reasonable. On 2 pitcher sites, I expect that I'll get a pretty healthy amount of Pomeranz.
All right. Well, we'll close it out with this. Your ultimate or final thoughts on Chad Bettis and whether or not this is a game you're targeting any hitters.
Yeah, not really on the hitters here. I will have some Bettis just on 2 pitcher sites just because he's so cheap. Pitching in a good park against a team that's not very good. Again, not many strikeouts here in this San Francisco lineup. Bettis isn't a strikeout pitcher, but at a $5,800 DraftKings price tag, if I get 6 innings and a couple runs with a a couple, handful of strikeouts out of him, I'm fine with the bats that it lets me get.
All right. Sounds good. Hey, before we head out, we're going to do our top stacks, but hit us with a thumbs up. Like the video if you appreciate this content, you want to see more of it, because we appreciate you and it helps us out a lot. Subscribe and hit that notification bell as well, so you always know when content's dropping next. And stick around on the Awesemo YouTube channel, because we've got shows coming up after this. Baseball Live Before Lock. Adam, top stacks. Go ahead, give them out in order. I'm assuming we're pretty much in the same spot, but we'll find out. Go ahead.
Boston, Oakland, Texas, Yankees, Dodgers, if their lineup cooperates.
All right. Boston, Oakland, Texas, Dodgers. If you have the lefty Seager in there, would be nice. Obviously, like the Yankees, but I have interest in Giolito, and then I'll throw Houston in there as well. That'll do it for us. As always, thanks for watching. Good luck tonight. We'll see you back here after the weekend on the Deeper Dive Live Before Lock. Baseball coming up next, taking you till 7:05 Eastern Time. Peace.